Great.
Hello, welcome back to Zoom Studioz Raw Talk, episode 3. So we have recently been watching this show called One Strange Rock, the host being Will Smith. If you don't know who Will Smith is, you've been living under a rock. So it really blew our minds away, and we just wanted to basically share it with you, share some of the facts that we learned about on the show. So let's
just talk about the Earth. I mean, the environment and climate change and everything is like a huge topic. And honestly, with out the Earth and all of Earth's beauty, we wouldn't have the art. And me as a photographer, I wouldn't have
Zoom Studios wouldn't exist.
Photos of. Obviously there's man-made things like buildings and art installations, but nothing quite compares to just the natural beauty of the world. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about some crazy facts that kind of blew our mind, and just hopefully share something new with you guys that you didn't know.
All right. So the first episode of One Strange Rock, they talk about breathing. As simple as it is, breathing we don't really think of as a day-to-day thing.
No, but the amount of effort it takes our world to just be able for us to breathe. Just something so simple.
Yeah,
but
so natural to us.
The only reason that we can be on this earth. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, this whole first episode was literally just about how we're able to breathe. So
let's start off. The first Earth is the only place that we know of with oxygen. Oxygen mixes with our food and creates energy, which then allows other larger, more complex forms of life to exist.
So that's basically kind of like what you learn in school. Like that's like the basics of it. I mean, I knew that.
Yeah,
I knew that from science in school.
Yeah.
But the amount of detail that goes beyond that and what they touch on in this episode is it's kind of crazy.
It is. And if you want to watch the episode, it's on Disney Plus. It's called One Strange Rock. The effects that they use, the way that they show it, the photography and videography and the footage.
They also have astronauts on there. Like, not only is Will Smith the host, who Will Smith is amazing, so he just kind of adds a little extra spice to it, but they also have, I think like 7 astronauts or something.
Yeah, 7 or 8 astronauts who spent over 100 days in space. Over 100 days? Maybe 1,000 days in space.
But they actually interview them and have them speak a little bit in there too, and just like to be able to,
see
obviously
the Earth
there's not very many
high.
people who have been in space and seen Earth from that perspective. So it's kind of crazy.
So first we're going to start in Dalal, Ethiopia. They talked about how this place in Ethiopia, the air is completely toxic.
I didn't like the footage that they show of this place. It looks like it's from another planet.
It looks like an alien planet. It really does. And
kind of
they
insane.
do like a close-up of the guy's foot stepping on it, and it looks like a dried sponge.
Yeah.
Like a yellow dry sponge. And you can just tell this air and this place is dead. So, like I said, the air is toxic. The ground spits acid. There's no fresh water. There's no birds.
You have to, like, in the footage, they're wearing like gas masks. They're wearing like the hazmat suits. It's kind of crazy. And
apparently, this scientist or this guy that does these experiments there and catches data basically lives there because he's doing all these experiments and data and everything. And
but there's no birds.
No
animals of any kind. There's no insects. And there is no plant life of any kind in this area. None. So this is like kind of, if you think about it, it's like maybe the only place on Earth where there's no life. Besides these tiny little bacterias. It's the only thing that live in this area. And and they live in the lake of acid, and they don't use oxygen, which is why they're the only thing that
survives
there. And they make this point to say that if it wasn't for oxygen, the oxygen that we have and we need to breathe, nothing would be able to grow larger than these pieces of bacteria, which are the size of a pinhead. So without oxygen, we'd all be like this big. It's kind of crazy.
It wouldn't even exist.
Yeah,
almost.
Like, we'd all just be like tiny little pieces of bacteria.
So we're gonna start there with Ethiopia and this place that's toxic, and that there's no living organisms except for the bacteria there. Next, we're gonna go to Danakil, East Africa. This is a desert which is made of complete salt.
Yeah. So they show some footage of the people who live there.
The salt gatherers.
And they're salt miners.
Yeah.
And they go out there, they mine this salt, they cut it up, they sell it. I think they said they go out there like once a month, and it's like this crazy long trek to get out there. But the reason why this desert of salt is so crazy is not for the salt, but because of the dust storms that happen in this area. These dust storms are so big that you can apparently see them from space.
Yep. So the one astronaut was talking about that and how he does orbits around the Earth, and how when he makes his full orbit and he sees these sandstorms going across, it looks like a whole continent that's moving, going into the Atlantic, into the oceans.
And you think of dust, right, and sand, and it's so small, right? So you're like, how could you possibly be able to see all those small little particles all the way from space? Like
that's big dust storm.
Big, and they have footage from that where you see these guys walking through this, and you can't see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah.
It's so
they were traveling multiple camels carrying this salt back that help supply the work there, and you can only see one camel at a time, one guy and his camel, but you couldn't see the rest of them, and they were like 3-4 feet away from each other. But these dust storms are where it all begins, really.
Yeah, so we'll kind of come back to that a little bit.
We'll come back, yeah.
The dust storms are what's important about that area. But in order to know more about that, we have to actually go to the Amazon in Brazil. The Amazon rainforest, pretty famous place. A lot of, we talk about that in science as well.
Yeah.
It's been in the news recently, unfortunately, for not so good things with all the fires that they were having. But basically, every year, 27 million tons of that dust from Africa, that desert we were just talking about.
The Ethiopia,
yep. The desert.
That dust
drops out of the sky, so it all gets taken up in that dust storm. It goes into the sky, and it somehow makes its way all the way to the Amazon, falls into the Amazon, and it becomes fertilizer for that entire forest that we know. And that's how all of those plants grow. Dust from
Ethiopia
goes to Brazil.
Across the ocean. It crosses the freaking ocean.
Yeah.
And goes into the Amazon basin. So one single tree in the Amazon has enough oxygen to support 2 people.
2 people. For one tree, 2 people could live off of that one tree. But that's not even the craziest part.
Amazon rainforest is 10 times the size of Texas. So that's a lot of trees, which means that one saying that everybody probably knows is that the Amazon is the lungs of the earth, which is not true. There's 20
even though 20 times more oxygen than all the people on the earth could consume that comes from the rainforest. 20 times more than we need. So that's why that saying is so famous, because there's so much oxygen coming from there.
But none of it. Let's just say this again. 20 times more oxygen than all the people on the earth can consume.
It's just in that one rainforest.
It's just in the Amazon rainforest. And all that oxygen never leaves the Amazon rainforest.
We don't consume any of that oxygen that's coming from the Amazon. And you're probably like, how does that work?
Yeah, wait.
I know we were like, how does that work?
Yeah, we were all like, but I thought it was the lungs of the earth. I thought that's where the oxygen comes from. I thought, well, it's not. So
the reason for that is because all of the animals that live in the rainforest use that oxygen. So hang on a sec. So you're telling me that all of the animals that live in the Amazon rainforest are consuming more oxygen than all of the people on the planet.
On the planet.
So does that mean there's more animals in that rainforest than there are people? That's what I'm wondering. They didn't quite answer that, but maybe not. I don't know. But I'm just I would think crazy.
So. If not that, I mean, they're consuming more oxygen, which means there has to be. I mean, what like, I mean, maybe does a frog use as much oxygen as a anaconda? Like, I don't know. That's so we're not scientists
here.
We're not scientists.
But this is just some crazy stuff that we couldn't even believe.
It just blew our minds.
Can't believe it.
So everyone thinks that the rainforest is the lungs of the planet. We said that's not true. The Amazon does help us breathe, though.
Just not in the way that you think.
Yes, but not because of the oxygen, but instead because of the river. Not the Amazon River, though, but a river that's in the sky.
Huh?
So we all know the Amazon River. That's a pretty famous river, just about as famous as the Amazon rainforest itself. But that's not the river that supplies us with our oxygen.
No.
No. It's a floating river.
It's a floating river. So when the dust, let's start back, from Ethiopia, comes over the ocean, lands in the Amazon basin.
Fertilizes all those plants. Which then produce all of that oxygen that never leaves the rainforest and is only consumed by the animals in the rainforest.
Yeah.
But those plants
do release water. And it runs. Sorry. So these plants release the water, and then rain and wind turn it into a river in the sky.
I think it's sun and wind.
Sun and wind.
Yeah.
I messed up my notes here.
Sun and wind takes the water from the plants and creates a river in the sky. Basically, all this mist is what it looks like.
Yeah.
But one of the astronauts was actually saying that obviously when they're up in space, they try and take as many pictures as possible when they get a free chance, which, I mean, why would you not? I would love to have that experience, to take pictures of the planet. Like, these photos they were showing were just like mind-blowing. Like, they looked like pieces of art, like paintings. But the one place you apparently can never get a good photo is over the Amazon, and that's because of this floating river. It's basically just this huge white cloud from space, and that's all of that water
coming off of those plants.
Yeah.
And if it was a river like the Amazon River, like the Mississippi River,
like the rivers we know,
yeah, if it was like that, it'd be the biggest river on the planet. Let that sink in.
So technically, the Amazon rainforest has the 2 largest rivers in the world.
So this flying river, let's just call it, from the Amazon basin, then flies over and flows into the Andes Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
These clouds turn into rain, which then flows down the mountains and flow back into the Amazon basin.
As it's flowing down the mountains, it picks up nutrients and like sediment, and it dumps it into the oceans. I know this is like a lot. We had to like pause and rewatch so many moments of this episode because we were just like, wait, what? Did I hear that right?
Yeah. So it goes into the oceans. And then what's waiting in the ocean is an organism that's 4 times thinner than a human hair, which is called a diatom.
Diatoms are going to be very important.
Yes.
So remember that word, diatom.
Diatoms.
I have to admit, I don't remember ever learning about diatoms in school.
I think I did.
Maybe I did.
I definitely think I did. But it, again, wasn't presented in this way. Maybe it was. I really don't remember. But the way that they do it is just... It literally mind-blowing emoji.
Yeah. But basically, these diatoms are the secret to all of Earth's oxygen. Their population doubles every single day. And basically, one breath one breath out of the 2 you just took is completely supplied by the diatom coming from the sea.
So, take one breath right now. And take another one. One of those was supplied by these diatoms that were put into the ocean.
Yeah.
From that dust storm that we were talking about in Ethiopia.
And it's crazy too because these diatoms aren't just important alive, but they're also just as important dead. How does that work? Well, it gets, it becomes a big circle after that. Basically, once the diatoms go to the ocean, they eventually die. They're little diatom carcasses that are thinner than a piece of hair, 4 times thinner.
4 times thinner. That's really freaking thin.
Float to the bottom of the sea, and they just sit on the bed.
They blanket it.
Yep. And they call this kind of like, I think,
the snowflakes.
Snowflakes, because it kind of looks like snow in the water. And those just sit down there for millions of years. But after millions of years, eventually that seabed will rise, the water will evaporate, and that will then, in turn, go back and become that original desert we were talking about in Ethiopia, where the sandstorms start. So it's just like this big circle of the diatoms coming from the desert, making their way to the sea, dying, going down to the bottom of the sea, and then that sea becoming a desert. And then it starts all over again.
Millions of years.
Millions of years, obviously. Yes, it's going to take a very long time. But it's kind of crazy to think that once upon a time, millions of years ago, that salt desert in Ethiopia was a seabed.
Yeah.
It was underwater. And it's now made up of all those little dead diatoms, which get caught up in this sandstorm and make their journey once again.
So these diatoms, not only can they get their nutrients from a tropical rainforest,
obviously, because they can't all come from there, right?
They can't all come from there. How else do we get it? Yeah. They also get it from a complete opposite environment, which are glaciers. So going to, I don't want to pronounce this wrong, but let's just say Norway. We're going to go to Norway. Svalbard?
Svalbard? Svalbard. Norway.
So obviously in Norway there's those glaciers, and they are constantly moving, and sometimes they sit for a halt for years. One collapse of these glaciers, when they fall apart and some of it goes into the ocean. When it falls into the ocean, it dumps thousands of tons of ice into the sea, which then becomes food for these diatoms that were dumped into the sea.
So that's another way these diatoms
survive
are
and
getting fed and reproducing, is not only from the tropical rainforests, but on the other end, icy glaciers.
so that's just one way of how one side of the earth connects with the other side of the earth. It's all working.
It's all balanced.
It's all balanced. It's all working together.
It's actually a spot on this planet where you can walk to a point where your oxygen level is going to be half of what we're used to. And that happens in La Rinconada, Peru, where actually 25,000 people live there. And this spot is higher than Mount Everest's base camp. Not higher than Mount Everest, higher than Mount Everest's base camp. So all of those people up there are living in a situation where they're getting half of the oxygen the rest of us are getting. So that obviously can cause lung problems for them. So you're probably thinking, why would anyone want to live there if you can't breathe?
Live there, work there, like
Yeah.
every day there.
That's because of gold. There's apparently lots of gold in this area. So people stick it out and
Hopes and
in hopes of finding gold.
some gold.
It's crazy.
So nobody can live higher than this limit.
That's the limit.
Humans can't survive higher than that limit, which makes you just think how low our oxygen line and level really is. So too much oxygen can also be dangerous though. Too low oxygen obviously is dangerous because we want to be able to breathe, but too much oxygen can also be dangerous. So going back 300 million years ago, there was a lot more oxygen, so much that the planet just burned. So too much oxygen, that is a hard thing to say. Too much oxygen. Don't know why that's so hard to say. This planet 300 million years ago just burned. So that's the point that I was saying before, is that it's all balance. Again, we're going to say that a bunch of times. It's balance. It's a balance of too less oxygen, we suffocate. Too much oxygen, and we burn.
Somehow we're sitting perfectly right in the middle in order for us all to be able to breathe and survive.
So we are all, and that's how all of us should think about this every day, is that how every breath we take is supplied by all these things. A dust storm in Ethiopia, the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. These things are balancing
The glaciers.
So on the
kind
other
of,
side of the world.
It's kind of sad too and scary, because you hear about all these glaciers that are melting faster than they should be, and rainforests that are burning when they shouldn't be, and that kind of raises the question, well, what does that mean for our oxygen? Obviously, like, somehow our earth is combating that, and it's keeping it balanced, but for how long is it going to be able to do that?
What happens when there's no more glaciers and they're all melted?
What happens when the rainforest burns down? So obviously hope that doesn't happen, but
obviously
it's crazy to think that just a tiny little piece going out of balance
could mess it
throw
all
it all off.
And we're all in the same boat. That's one thing of what I think about every day, is that just why these people are.
I understand we all have different opinions, different views,
different lives.
But the two things that we do have in common, every single person on this planet, we all have two things in common. We're all humans, and we all live on this earth. And there is no other place we can go.
There's nowhere we can go. We can go to space, but we're not there yet.
Have you watched Have you watched any space shows? You know, there's all these crazy theory space shows like The Expanse, if you haven't seen that, or what's that show on Netflix? Why can't I think of the name
Lost
of
in
it?
Space.
Lost in Space. Like, do we really want to go to space? As amazing as it would be, I don't think we all want to live out there because
There's a lot of pros and cons with that as well.
Yes. But somehow for millions of years, our oxygen level has made up 20.95% of our atmosphere. Exactly. For millions of years. Exactly that percentage. 20.95%.
It's been that way.
Talking about balance. Somehow it has been completely balanced to be that exact percent for millions of years. I don't know how it does it.
It's a living organism.
Especially with, humans
doing human things.
Doing their thing and trying to throw it off the best we can. I know we don't do it on purpose, but we don't always think about these things. I mean, I'm not saying I think about it every day, but
no, but
we gotta try,
We gotta try to think about that. Just think about your oxygen. Just as simple as breathing. As simple as breathing. If we keep, hopefully electric cars become a thing, hopefully, eco-friendly things take over gas emissions and all these things that hurt our ozone layer, our layer that's getting thinner. It's getting thinner and it's getting lower as well. So if we keep hurting it and we keep affecting that line's just going to keep getting thinner, and our oxygen bubble, let's just say, is going to pop.
Ozone layer, yeah. But yeah, we just, every breath that we are able to take on this planet, it only happens because of the balance Earth has with water, wind, and fire. All the elements. You need all of those things perfectly balanced in order to have what we have. Otherwise, we would be like all the other planets in the solar system.
It's the hardest working machine that we know of.
Yeah.
Yet we don't
understand it.
We don't understand it, but not only that, we don't understand it, but we don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
We don't appreciate it. I know I didn't appreciate it. And watching this, obviously I'm much more appreciative of it, and I'm very thankful for every breath that I'm able to take.
I will be completely honest, I teared up a couple times during this episode. It was only a half hour?
I think it was like 40 minutes, 45
half
minutes
hour,
maybe.
45 minutes. Highly recommend watching it. It was amazing. We are definitely going to be watching more. We're going to be making more of these to talk more about what we learned, our thoughts on it. Hopefully you guys can learn something from it. Hopefully you get inspired. Hopefully you go watch it, just because obviously us talking about it is great. It's cool information.
And this isn't an ad or anything for us to, I have to say that because
this is just something that we did, and we're like, wow, we have to do
talk
our part
about it
to kind of share this and talk about it, just because it really
we have to get the word out.
Moved us, touched us, and even if you don't have the time to go watch it, maybe
hopefully
you're able to at least watch this or listen to this, and
we just wanna put these facts out into the world, and just pray and hope that people want to change, want to do something. Hopefully this may strike a 12-year-old who then creates this ridiculous thing that helps us. If the Amazon were to burn, or if the glaciers were to, like we were talking about, and like something were to go off balance, that maybe somebody in the future listens to this and figures out a way of, fixing the problems that humans create.
Or at the very least, you take a piece of this and you share it with somebody that you know, and they share it, and it just gets shared, and it becomes, something that not everybody knew, and now people are more aware of it. So that was Bot Talk number 3.
Bot Talk number 3.
Hope you guys enjoyed.
We really appreciate you listening to this. Thank you for sticking through this half hour.
Hope you guys learned something new.
Yes.
All right. Till next time, guys.